on the 7th of next month. In today's program, we'll be crossing live to our reporters Vanessa Poonah in Mitchell's Plain in the Western Cape and to Sello Tatai, who's in Potchefstroom in the Northwest Province. And yes, you've guessed it, when it comes to the Western Cape, we'll be tackling the issue of gangsterism, and we'll also be looking at mismanaged municipalities as election-related issues. All that and more in just a moment. But first, our usual wrap of today's election stories. The Independent Electoral Commission will tomorrow consider objections to candidates nominated for Parliament and the 9 provincial legislatures following a resurgence of violence in KwaZulu-Natal. The IEC has again called on parties not to engage in acts of violence or intimidation.
Among the objectors are the Agriculture Union, TLUSA, and the Institute for Accountability in Southern Africa. Both objected to President Jacob Zuma's #1 position on the ANC's list. The IEC will inform objectors and parties of its decision by Monday afternoon. Appeals must be submitted to the Electoral Court by April the 10th. And with just 5 weeks to go, high-profile campaigning is in full swing around the country. But KwaZulu-Natal remains a concern after yet another clash between ANC and NFP supporters.
It is important that we find a political settlement for those kind of issues. I don't think that a security solution is going to be the prime and the most critical component of our strategy. We have to engage the communities. We've got to find a way of dealing with those issues. And our officials have been engaging with the communities in KwaZulu-Natal.
ANC Secretary-General Gwede Mantashe took the party's campaigning to Sterkspruit in the Eastern Cape. He spoke to shop owners and people in the street and said he was prepared to talk to the group that wants a standalone municipality for Sterkspruit. All went well until he encountered protesting members of the town's civic association. Mantashe and his delegation was prevented from visiting the nearby taxi rank.
Your right to protest must not tamper with other people's right. Don't destroy property. Don't destroy a school because you want a road. Don't destroy a clinic because you want a hall. If you do so, you are taking your own cause backward. And it is not an election issue. It's a demarcation issue. And municipal demarcation is done periodically.
At Oudtshoorn, the DA leader Helen Zille said the party wasn't ignoring its traditional voter base in the Western Cape. She was speaking during a visit to the Little Karoo National Arts Festival.
We are never low-key and we are never complacent about any support anywhere. We are working just as hard in the Western Cape as we are in the rest of the country.
In Cape Town, the DA took its election campaign to Nyanga on the Cape Flats. It's an area plagued by high youth unemployment levels, gangsterism and substance abuse. The DA youth leader, Hambali Ntuli, led the youth campaign. And in the Free State capital, over 40 members of COPE, as well as some economic freedom fighter supporters, switched their allegiance to the ANC. The ANC welcomed the new members, some of whom had served in the provincial legislature. Among the COPE members was Charlotte Lobe, who had earlier served on the ANC's National Executive Committee.
All right, now remember there are various ways in which you can get in touch with us and participate in the show today. Do send us your emails to elections@sabc.co.za, or you can send us an SMS to 33726. Now begin your message with the word vote, and just a reminder, the SMSs will cost you R1.50. If you prefer to send us a tweet, use the hashtag SABC Elections. You can also find us on Facebook. We're at SABC News Online. All right, now communities across the Cape Flats in the Western Cape are living in fear as gang violence in that area continues, seemingly unabated. In a recent spate of incidents, children as young as 3 years old have become victims, if not targets, as rival gangs continue their bitter fight for control of the lucrative drug trade there. Well, residents say they're living under siege and they've called on authorities for urgent intervention. Gangsterism has become almost synonymous with the Cape Flats. Its roots lie in the numbers gang, which originated in the 1900s, re-emerging, of course, later into the street gangs of the 1980s. Let's take a look.
Residents of Bishop Lavis on the Cape Flats. marching through the area in protest against gang violence, which claimed the life of young Tatum Prince. The 3-year-old toddler was shot and killed last month, allegedly in the crossfire of a gun battle between rival gangs. She was buried on what was to have been her 4th birthday.
For that family that lost the child, that's why, you know, and I hope it's not going to happen again.
Stop with all the nonsense, because we can't take it anymore, because we from the community feels we want to take everything in our own hands, and it is not right to take everything in their own hands.
Tatum is just one of many children mowed down in the running gun battles between rival gangs. In Beacon Valley, in Mitchell's Plain, 3 people were killed in one weekend. Among them was 12-year-old Jacinta Matruas. She was shot a mere 20 meters from her home. Her family too wants drastic action.
Why they don't send the army in? They can use the force. The force is the one who can help in these cases.
But calls like these have been turned down by authorities.
A default position of thinking that the army is an automatic option has no roots in any science, in any factual history before here, and that it qualitatively made a difference is also the issue. I'm also a trained soldier, so I know how operationally I will behave when I'm shot on as a soldier, and it's very, very different from being a trained police officer, which I also am, and the way I would react in that situation. Okay, so those are the type of things. I think these things need to be thoroughly thought through before it is suggested.
Meanwhile, with elections a month away, political parties are largely mum on the matter. In its election manifesto, the DA promises to fight gangsterism and drugs by reinstating the Narcotics Bureau and building more rehabilitation centres. The ANC makes no mention of the gang issue in its manifesto, but its provincial leader, Marius Fransman, has called on all political parties to put their differences aside to find a solution to the problem.
I don't feel like it is going to make a change in Manenberg, because the children that getting hurt and raped and all that kind of stuff, and nothing happened about it.
They feel that they got their votes and they in the party in parliament thinking nothing about the poor people in Manenberg. That's why the shooting is going on like that, and everything, everybody just do whatever they want to do.
The children is so traumatized that nothing happened. If they come, whatever shooting, whatever, kids must run. You can't keep your kids in the road. The DA promised, the ANC promised, nothing happened.
There have been numerous ceasefire agreements between rival gangs over the years, but experts do not believe these are sustainable.
It allows people to regroup, replenish, restock, and re-strategize. That's all it does. If it happens within the absence of a broader plan, and that plan is to dismantle the infrastructure that actually supports criminal gang activity.
The social issues fueling gangsterism on the Cape Flats cannot be ignored. Poverty, unemployment and a lack of proper education all contribute to the enormity of the problem.
We can tackle this criminally, lock people up and all those things, but what makes a 14-year-old decide he wants to be a 28 general is something policing can do nothing about. Because that is that entrenchment of that way of being and that way of thinking and the transmission of that knowledge throughout 100 years is something that demands other type of attention.
In the meantime, the people of the Cape Flats say they are virtually prisoners in their own homes, in the very communities meant to provide comfort and safety. Vanessa Poonah, SABC News, Cape Town.
Well, our thanks to my colleague Vanessa there, our reporter on the ground, for giving us details on what's happening there. Let's get an update now on that situation. We cross live to Vanessa. She's in Mitchell's Plain in the Western Cape. Vanessa, a very good day to you. Thanks again for joining us. When you're among the people in that particular part of South Africa, is there ever hope among them that the streets of the Western Cape will be free from gangsterism, even under a new provincial government?
Yes, good evening to you too. And I think the sense that I've got from the people on the Cape Flats in places like Mitchell's Plain, where we currently are, as well as Bishop Lavis, Manenberg and all the other gang-infested areas, people remain hopeful. People want to live in comfort, people want to live in safety, people want to see the children grow up and not be killed in gang violence. And this is just one of those issues that have been plaguing the Cape Flats communities for decades. Now, joining me this evening to talk about this very issue is Adila Maker. Adila Maker is with the community-based organisation Lentegee East Task Team, and she will just be telling us more about exactly what the community wants to see in this ongoing spate of violence across the Cape Flats. Adila, good evening to you. You mentioned to me earlier on that people are tired of seeing their children killed in gang violence.
Yes, I mean, just last week we would not be standing here. The social media was full that nobody could be on the town centre. So every day people face the reality that gangsters rule their lives. But the reality is also that this is about money. If they had 100,000 people in Mitchells Plain, which is a complete underestimate, that is addicted to unga, and they took 2 hits of unga a day, they would pay 60 rand. That's 6 million rand a day. So the fight is not just about territory. The territory is about who gets to sell drugs in which areas. And that's what people are facing. And at the same time, you are seeing that there are scrapyards, illegal scrapyards popping up in the very communities where people live, because everybody that's addicted needs to get money. And so they resort to crime. They steal from their parents, they steal from their homes, they break down the cables, they burn copper wires, they come and they sell. But we also face gangsters mass recruiting children, where parents are completely helpless. They can't do anything about it. In one of the areas in Lentegee, we had a situation where a gang just went onto the field and gathered all the young children in the area, because they are recruiting young children. And they were initiating them into the gang. And when the one mother came out and tried to call her son back, she was told to just go back into her home because her child is now part of the gang.
And this is one of the issues, is that on the Cape Flats we see lots of mothers, lots of single mothers, parents having to go out and work with nobody to caretake their kids. And you said to me earlier on, this is one of the big problems. It's a socio-economic problem that policing alone will not solve.
Definitely policing alone won't solve the issue. We have an extremely high unemployment rate in Mitchells Plain. We have a lot of parents, and in the country we have about 1/3 of mothers that are single and they are raising children by themselves. So they have to go out and get money, so they work, and so their children are left alone. At the same time, you have no recreational facilities in the communities. You have only gangsters as role models, as people that gets money. And so the only way children get to see that money gets to come in is if they join a gang.
To the community, what would you like to see as a solution to this ongoing problem, the problem that has seen young boys, young girls being drawn into gangs, the problem that have seen young children as young as 3 years old being killed in gang violence? What would the community like to see as a solution, or a possible solution? Can gangsterism be eradicated?
Well, the one thing that we do want is we believe that the army should be called in to help stabilize the situation. The police do not have the capacity to deal with the problem. We also think that there should be no bail ever granted to known gangsters. All the cases that is drug-related needs to be dealt with, because what we're seeing is gangsters are picked up with unga or with tik, and 2 hours later they are released. And so we are saying there should be no bail granted to any person that is picked up for drugs or that is a known gangster. We also believe that the bylaws should be applied, that at the moment the scrapyards are completely illegal. If this was in a situation in Claremont, the police would come in and they would actually clean up. So we are calling for the same treatment as any other area, because the lives of people in Mitchells Plain is just as valuable as the lives of people in richer areas.
Thank you very much, Adila, painting a picture of a community fed up with the gang violence, a community fed up of their children being lured into gangs and being killed in that very violence.
So much, Vanessa. It's a massive problem indeed, the domino effect of socio-economic factors, drug abuse, crime, corruption. It's definitely something that needs to be dealt with as a matter of urgency. Our reporter there, Vanessa Poonah, reporting live from Mitchells Plain in the Western Cape. Our thanks to her and her guests. Now, we've asked ordinary South Africans what they thought about the ongoing gang violence, and here's what they've had to say.
Political parties, they themselves are corrupt.
All the political parties are corrupt also.
You understand what I'm saying? It will never be stopped. You understand? Because there's sometimes it's something like we couldn't say it's on grid.
People are normally too frightened because they are being they're going to be targeted.
For me, it's because they can't solve it, so they won't go there to make promises and stuff, so they won't be able to fulfill them.
I think it's a very broad subject, and you need a lot of effort as a politician to do that.
They don't care about people's needs and stuff like that. And I think they are gangsters themselves because they also commit fraud, and then they think that they might be caught because of they put more attention on gangsterism and stuff like that.
They're concerned about having this prestige life and their security rather than the security of people that are actually voting for them.
All right, some very interesting and varied views and opinions there. Let's take a look at some of the Facebook messages and tweets that we've just received. Here's the first one. Deploy more military forces, avoid bribes among forces, police and drug dealers, and then work hand in hand with community members. There's some suggestions there on how we can tackle that issue. Let's go to the next tweet and see what LaBelle had to say. Our country still has a long way to go. Gangsterism so deep in Cape Town. The last one that we're going to take a look at the moment is this from Fanuel, I think, Quinton Calvin, writing in and saying, wherever the military was deployed, gangsterism activities came to a temporary halt, and that is good news. There's some suggestions there. Remember, we do enjoy hearing from you, so do send us your tweets, your SMSs, your emails as well, and contribute to the show. Now, we'll be back with more just after this break. Stay with us.
Oh, happy day! Just add a little ramen and your pap will be smoother, fluffier, and deliciously creamy. Just add a little ramen to make your pap taste great.
My father was a tough man. I was always amazed he never took the day off. It wasn't until I got older that I realized he had help. He knew that Grandpa's fast triple action relief of pain, fever, and inflammation just worked, whether in tablets or powders, it acted fast. My father's a wise man, so when I feel pain, I trust the same Grandpa he does. For fast relief, trust Grandpa, SA's #1 pain reliever.
Petrol prices gonna hike. Beat the traffic with a bike. If renovations make you cry, learn to do some DIY. When shopping stick to no-name brands, you will save a lot of rent. Oh, 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 get budget roller premiums. Oh, 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 nothing rhymes with premium.
There are a lot of ways to meet the budget. SMS budget to 40322 and get low premiums on your car, home, business, and life insurance. Budget insurance, the easy way to save.
Nowadays, for most of us, a sneeze is not just a sneeze. It could mean flu. Or
it could be swine flu.
Because germs are getting stronger. So what will protect us? Lifebuoy Clinicare 10 with active natural shield. 10 times better germ protection. So when you're protected, all you'll say is...
Bless you.
Lifebuoy Clinicare 10.
Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. You're watching Elections 2014, a special pre-election show in which we take a look at some voter-related issues before this year's crucial general elections come the 7th of May. Let's now cross over to our reporter Sello Tatai in Potchefstroom in the northwest, the seat of the Tlokwe municipality, you'll remember, which has been in the news the last few months for all the wrong reasons. A very good evening to you, Sello. Thanks again for your time. Now, the mayor of Tlokwe is again in hot water, this time for alleged drunken driving, we understand, while on a trip to the Western Cape. What sort of impact is this likely to have on this year's general elections, do you think?
Well, Ayanda, you'll remember that last year
ANC councillors voted with the opposition to unseat an ANC mayor, Mapetla, and that resulted into opposition parties capitalizing on some of the challenges confronting the ANC here in Tlokwe. You'll remember that that in itself led to the DA running the municipality for about 6 months. The ANC then went into by-elections, then it eventually got back its mayoral position here in Tlokwe. But some of the challenges confronting residents here in Tlokwe continues to be about service delivery problems, as residents say they do not have access to basic services such as water, housing and electricity. But when you look at the other side of Tlokwe, you cannot take away a fact that the ANC has done well in terms of providing certain other communities with those basic services that are alluded to earlier on. But it will be interesting to see how those opposing views will translate into on the 7th of May, Ayanda.
Yeah, it will be interesting indeed. Now, all of the municipalities in the Northwest have one or some degree of struggle. You mentioned some of the highlights, but we also know some issues persist. I'm talking about the Motlosana in Klerksdorp, which is drowning in debt and under administration as well, we do understand. Is this going to vote or affect voter patterns, do you think?
Challenges confronting municipalities in the Northwest Ayanda dates as far as back as 2009, where a majority, if not all of them, were put under administration. There was an SIU report to that effect, and COSAT in the Northwest Province has been coming out strong in saying that that report should be fully implemented. That has not happened, and those are some of the things that opposition parties are capitalizing on, saying that the ANC, to a large extent, is not serious about dealing with the mayors that we currently see in the provinces, municipalities, saying that to a large extent the ANC is not serious about bringing to book corrupt officials in the provinces, municipalities.
Sello, let's leave it there for now. We'll continue our discussion at a later stage as we build up to the May 7th elections. That's Sello Tatai, our reporter, live from Potchefstroom in the Northwest. And to our viewers at home, thank you so much for your SMSs, your emails and your tweets. So let's take a look at more of them. I believe the first one is coming from Unati Grootboom, saying drug bosses are responsible for this violence in Cape Flats. The solution is to bring in the army. And Unati commenting on just a question and answer session we had a little bit earlier with our reporter Vanessa, who was in Mitchell's Plain in the Western Cape. Masizole says country as a whole and political parties must work together to get rid of gangster violence in the Western Cape. Also staying with that particular issue. And Manyonya says it's disappointing to see the way our government, how slowly it is responding to this issue. Innocent people killed. And indeed, I think that is what is the saddest of it all. Innocent young lives are being lost at the hands of gangsters. Well, thank you so much again for your comments and your feedback. Now, after the break, the leader of the Kingdom Governance Movement has 1 minute in which to convince you to vote for his party. Don't miss it.
You know kids, always on some new adventure, in the mud, touching things they shouldn't. Luckily, a daily dose of Scott's contains omega-3 and vitamins A and D for active minds and strong immune systems. Scott's Emulsion helps kids grow healthy and strong. New pack, same Scott's you trust.
Spoil yourself this Friday and Saturday and save up to $400 on the brands you love at the red carpet.
Hello again. You're watching Elections 2014. We begin the final section of today's program with our regular slot in which the leaders of various political parties taking part in this year's elections have just 1 minute to address the voters directly. Well, here's Kingdom Governance Movement Secretary General Sipho Mongezeleli.
There are basically 3 reasons why South Africans must vote for us. We are envisaging a situation where the Constitution of South Africa must be based on values and balance the values together with human rights. The second thing is that we believe that the issue of government of national unity needs to be revisited to normalize the political instability in our country. We don't believe that the issue of governance of nationality was a strategy to manage transition. It is a principle that we must embrace as South Africans, whereby it's not the winner takes all, so that we are able to bring in other parties that have got brilliant ideas and policies so that we work around the national unity.
And there you have it. Are you convinced? Yes? No? Maybe? Don't worry. We won't ask you about it. We know your vote is your secret. Well, that's where we leave it for this evening. And indeed, the week will be back with more election-related news and issues next week at 6 o'clock. Goodbye from us. God bless. And have yourself a fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.